More than 1 million people have now signed a petition calling for a complete ban on the use of genetically modified crops in Europe. It comes after the bloc gave its approval in the summer to the limited growing of some crops. Now, it's led to accusations the US, which is the world's major player in the industry, is putting unfair pressure on the EU. Well, for more, we're now joined by William Engdahl, author of Seeds of Destruction, The Hidden Agenda of GMO, for his take on the latest events. Thanks for joining us. Now, what do you make of the EU's approval in the summer? Was it a result of US pressure?
Since George W. Bush went to the World Trade Organization in 2003, before the rubble had cleared in Baghdad even, and pressed a suit against the European Union for blocking the licensing and approval of GMO crops, the U.S. government has made genetic manipulation, the spread of GMO seeds, patented seeds from Monsanto, Dow, DuPont, and others, a national security priority. It's tantamount to the export of defense weapons for the Pentagon and for the U.S. budget. It's a national security export sector, agribusiness, and especially patented seeds, GMO seeds from Monsanto and company. So the pressure on the European Union, I know from direct reports out of Brussels, I know from intelligence networks, grassroots of farmers and political people across Europe, is enormous. There's corruption in the European Food Safety Authority, the EFSA, where Monsanto and other front organizations of the GMO lobby finance the research work of scientists who are supposed to be neutral and independent and looking out for the food safety of the European population. So the pressure, yes, it's enormous.
There's strong allegations there indeed. I mean, the US has a virtual monopoly in GM seeds. I mean, do you think the US government is railroading its way into protected EU markets?
Well, they're certainly trying to, and they've done that to a large extent in Spain for a number of years now, where the agribusiness interests have literally taken over what used to be a delightfully natural food culture in Spain and turned it into agribusiness, synthetic, I call it fake foods, where you have bright red tomatoes delivered from Spain, southern Spain, into German supermarkets, and you bite into them and they taste like chemically altered water and not real tomatoes. So this is a massive pressure on the EU, for one reason, because the resistance in the European Union is one of the major resisting points to the proliferation of patented seeds worldwide. And the U.S. government co-holds the patent with Monsanto on Terminator seed technology, and they refuse to stop research on Terminator technology. So imagine if the European Union has Monsanto seeds and Monsanto switches those seeds off unless the European Union does politically what Washington wants in a particular scenario, or China, or any other country for that matter, Russia.
Now, when it comes to our people buying
Hi, I'm Max Kaiser. This is the Kaiser Report. We're on the front line of markets and finance. There's a global war going on, savers versus speculators, financial terrorists versus the rest of us. And the front line on this markets and finance extends past just banks. It also includes companies like Monsanto, symbol MON, New York Stock Exchange. Stacey Herbert, tell me more.
Yes, Max Kaiser. They are in the first headline, WikiLeaks. U.S. ambassador planned retaliation against France over ban on Monsanto corn. So apparently former Ambassador Craig Stapleton was concerned about France's decision to suspend cultivation of Monsanto's MON 810 corn and warned that a new French environmental review standard could spread anti-biotech policy across the EU. He said, quote, "Country Team Paris recommends that we calibrate a target retaliation list that causes some pain across the EU, since this is a collective responsibility, but that also focuses in part on the worst culprits."
Yeah, I want to point this out to folks that Monsanto and their genetically modified seeds is another form of a fiat currency. It's another form of debt currency that they foist onto a population, they then become indebted, in this case agriculturally indebted, but the currency itself is a form of a currency. And I reach out to my brothers in India because you're letting Monsanto into your country for really no good reason. They're there. They're doing all kinds of mischief there, and it's a form of fiat currency and control and debt control, Indians. You should be aware of this.
Well, there's a few things here to look at because, first of all, he threatened retaliation. The State Department was looking at retaliation. What was that retaliation, and is the financial crisis across Europe, for example, part of that retaliation? The other thing is that WikiLeaks is the one that released this information. If it weren't for WikiLeaks, we would not know that the U.S. State Department sought to punish France and the French people. By the way, the French people are the ones that are forcing their government to adopt these policies against genetically modified seeds. So punishing these people, we would not have known if it weren't for WikiLeaks releasing this information. And in fact, we would not have known if it were not for a few alternative media outlets, no mainstream media. And you can look here at this little image here. I looked up on Washington Post. Not one single result for WikiLeaks Monsanto revelations. None.
Well, yeah, okay, just to review here. WikiLeaks and retaliation. So the U.S. is threatening retaliation. So U.S., on behalf of an American corporation, is threatening retaliation against France and other countries not to let in a corrupt, genetically modified debt currency from Monsanto into their country. And then WikiLeaks.
Now that you've seen this much, I can finally reveal the key to understanding this passage of prophecy. After seeing all these clips, it's hard to put your finger on what's going on, isn't it? Clearly greed's behind this, but is there more to it than just greed? Nonetheless, over 1 billion people are at risk of starving because they can't afford to buy food. Is this by chaos or design? What do you think? Do you know that this is more deaths than all the wars through all the history of mankind combined? And did you notice how I didn't include any clips on government officials, banks, trading companies, or Monsanto apologizing for the horrendous consequences of their actions? Well, the reason I didn't include any is because there aren't any. The only thing I could find was them actually justifying and excusing their actions. And if no one is apologizing for causing what could be the greatest catastrophe in human history, does this mean the reason they are not apologizing is because it may not actually be an accident? So are all these factors a part of some large scheme to undermine certain countries around the world, or perhaps something even more sinister, like culling the world population, as some say? And if so, would we ever be able to prove it? Of course not, but nonetheless, over 1 billion people are currently at risk of starving to death because of the price of food. And still, all things considered, we will never be able to find solid evidence as to what is really going on. And if we can't find evidence to prove any theory, then what are all these ideas and theories reduced to? Rumors. Now let's take a very close look at this verse again. Wars and rumors of wars. And although they are just rumors, they are very troubling rumors, just as the Bible says. Now let's take a look at what this passage is really saying. You will hear of wars and rumors of covert wars. And the weapons of these wars will be famine, pestilence, and earthquake. Yes, even earthquake, which we will deal with in another video. Now this line here is actually translated, and what will follow. In other words, when nation rises against nation and kingdom against kingdom, what will follow is famine, plague, and earthquake. What it does not mean is that wars, famines, and plagues and earthquakes will gradually and steadily rise over hundreds of years leading up to the end of the world. It means, in the end, there will be covert world wars that will claim alarming casualties and will affect most of the world's population in some way. And the covert weapons of these covert wars will be famine, plague, and earthquake. And in this section you have seen how you don't even have to sanction food supplies from a country in order to starve the population. You merely have to tamper with the price of food so that the average citizen starves to death while the shelves of the grocery stores are full. You have also seen how large corporations can gain complete control over any country's ability to grow food by manipulating them into buying genetically modified seeds, putting them at the complete mercy and control of the seed supplier. So in other words, under the guise of peace, the greatest world war of all time is being fought and will continue to be fought.